God of War is widely regarded to be one of the best video games of the past decade, and standing here in 2026, looking back at the landscape of the industry, that sentiment has only solidified. In 2018, Santa Monica Studio delivered what was essentially a Hail Mary, a soft reboot sequel that sent the franchise in a brand new direction at a pivotal point in their history. They needed to innovate. They needed to change up a formula that many felt had run its course with the original Greek trilogy. It would be the understatement of the century to say that they did just that. God of War was universally praised and even won Game of the Year in a year that had the likes of Red Dead Redemption 2 as competition, which is a feat that still sparks debates in comment sections to this day. Its deep and profound story, in-depth and challenging gameplay, and masterfully crafted worlds are some of the best in gaming history. Yet I have a bit of a complicated, almost guilty relationship with this game. I played it when it came out back in 2018, but I never finished it. A little game called Red Dead Redemption 2 came out later that year, and basically took over my entire personality. Although I knew from my initial few hours that God of War was absolutely incredible, I was a Red Dead fanboy through and through. Arthur Morgan's tragedy consumed me, which meant for whatever reason, I just hadn't revisited Kratos again. That is, until now. God of War has been by far the most requested video on this channel, so I finally dusted off my copy, sat down with a fresh perspective, and actually finished it. I didn't just play it, audited it, and what I found was undoubtedly a masterpiece of a video game that hasn't aged a single day. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the story, the gameplay, and the worlds of this incredible experience to take a retrospective look into the timeless perfection of God of War. When you break it down, God of War excels in every single category, but the story is the massive beating heart of the game. For context, I dabbled in the previous games, so I was familiar with Kratos being a rage-filled monster who decimated Olympus, but I wasn't a lore scholar. However, 2018 is a heightened experience if you know what came before, because the game uses your own memories of Kratos' violence against you. It doesn't rely on it though. It does a great job of filling you in on the essentials. This story is a meditation on actions having consequences, the weight of parenthood, and the fragile nature of trust. It touches on the endless cycle of violence, a theme that The Last of Us Part 2 revolved around, but I'd argue God of War actually handles it with more nuance. The story is fundamentally about a father and son, Kratos teaching Atreus how to be a god, while Atreus unknowingly teaches Kratos how to be human again. It is a fantastic subversion of the character we thought we knew. On the surface, it's so simple, a mourning father and son spreading a mother's ashes on the highest peak. But it's never about the end goal, it's about the friction of the journey. One thing that elevates this story above almost any other is the technical choice of the one-take camera. From the moment the game starts to the final credits, there is not a single cut. This isn't just a gimmick. It creates an oppressive, intimate atmosphere. It removes the safety that a cinematic cut usually provides. You are trapped in the silence between Kratos and his son. You are forced to feel the weight of every breath, every awkward glance, and every blood-soaked battle without ever being allowed to look away. The story picks up with an older, weary Kratos in Midgard. His wife, Faye, has died. We never see her, which I originally held against the game because I felt no connection to her, but I was just being a bit dense. You don't need to see Faye to feel her presence. You see her through the mourning of these two characters. The game starts with Kratos cutting down a tree for her funeral pyre, unaware that he's breaking a protection spell. This allows a man who looks like a Norse meth head, Baldur, to enter their home. He's a god who can't feel anything, and his fight with Kratos is one of the most visceral welcome back moments in gaming. The sheer scale of that encounter, the way the environment shatters around them, sets the tone for the rest of the experience. It establishes that Kratos is no longer the unstoppable force of nature he once was. He's a man trying to hold back a flood. After Kratos barely wins, they set off, and the backbone of the story, the connection between these two, starts to grow. Kratos is hard, stoic, and struggling to connect, while Atreus is eager and grieving. Along the way, we meet the true MVP of the game, Brock and Sindri, the bickering dwarf brothers who created the Leviathan axe. Their dynamic is the perfect levity for such a heavy story. We also meet the world serpent Jormungandr and the Witch of the Woods. A recurring theme I noticed is that your end goal is always dangling right in front of you, only for a new obstacle to sidetrack you. While some find that frustrating, I think it's brilliant. It forces you to experience the world rather than just rushing to the credits. Every detour feels like a lesson in patience for both the player and Atreus. In Alfheim, we get a deep look at Kratos' internal struggle when he enters the light. He sees a vision of Faye, a rare moment of vulnerability for him, only to be pulled out by Atreus, who has been fighting off an entire army of elves while Kratos was essentially away. This moment flips the dynamic. It shows Kratos that his son isn't just a boy, but a survivor who has been forced to grow up in the few minutes his father was gone. As they reach the first summit, they encounter Mimir, a man trapped in a tree by Odin. To take him along, Kratos beheads him and has him reanimated by the witch, who we find out is actually Freya, the former queen of the Valkyries. Mimir's addition to the game is a masterstroke. He's a talking encyclopedia, filling the silence of the boat rides with lore and wit. He's the glue of the dialogue. The story takes a dark turn when Atreus, unaware of his godhood, falls ill because his mortal mind can't handle his divine nature. This is a turning point for the narrative. Kratos is forced to face his past. Falls. In what is perhaps the most iconic scene in modern gaming, he returns home to retrieve the Blades of Chaos. He puts the safety of his son above his own desire to bury his bloody history. It's a moment of pure tactical and emotional weight. Seeing the bandages come off and the blades light up in the Norse cold is a feeling I can't even describe. The game doesn't just give you the blades, it makes you earn them through a long silent boat ride home where the ghost of Athena mocks you. It is a masterclass in building tension. After curing Atreus and telling him the truth, the boy goes on a bit of a god-complex power trip. He becomes a dick, killing Thor's son Modi against orders. It's a jarring shift, but it's realistic for a kid who just found out he's a literal deity. It tests the player's patience with Atreus, which makes the eventual reconciliation feel even more earned. Eventually, they are ambushed by Baldur and end up in Helheim, where the game uses environmental storytelling and visions to show us the trauma of both our heroes and our villain. We learn Freya is Baldur's mother, and that she cursed him with invulnerability to protect him, not realising she was sentencing him to a life of sensory deprivation and madness. This contextualises Baldur not as a bad guy, but as a tragic victim of a parent's overfixation, a mirror to Kratos' own parenting struggles. The way the game handles the theme of mothers and sons is just as powerful as its focus on fathers and sons. The climax is a masterclass in Chekhov's gun. The mistletoe arrow Kratos used to fix Atreus' quiver earlier in the game becomes the only thing that can break Baldur's curse. When Baldur finally feels pain after a century of nothing, his reaction isn't fear, it's twisted joy. Kratos tries to stop the cycle, tries to show mercy, but when Baldur attempts to kill Freya, Kratos ends it. He kills a god to save a mother, even knowing that mother will hate him for it. It is a heavy, messy ending that leads into the final climb to Jotunheim. There, they find murals revealing Faye was a giant and that she had foreseen every single step of their journey. She knew they would make it. Kratos isn't a pawn of destiny. He's a man who fulfilled his wife's last wish. They spread the ashes, and the silence at the top of that mountain is one of the most satisfying moments I've ever experienced in a medium. It's a moment of quiet reflection that feels earned after 20 hours of struggle. But a story is only as good as the hands that play it, and the gameplay of God of War is some of the most tactile and satisfying ever designed. Let's talk about the Leviathan axe. Throwing and recalling that weapon is the gold standard for haptic feedback and sound design. It has this thwack that you can feel in your teeth. Every time you press that triangle button, there is a microsecond of lag that simulates the weight of the metal flying through the air. It's a mechanical masterpiece. I was surprised by how much Metroidvania and Souls influence is buried in the bones of this game. It's an interconnected world that rewards you for auditing every corner. The level design is dense, filled with shortcuts and hidden paths that loop back to the Lake of Night. This makes the world feel like a real place, a lived-in architecture of gods and giants, rather than just a series of arenas. The combat runs incredibly deep, but the game doesn't force you to see that depth until you face the Valkyries. Those optional bosses are the ultimate skill check. They force me to care about my build, strength, runic, vitality, cooldown. I spent hours getting my ass kicked by a single Valkyrie, and despite the frustration, I never wanted to stop. The core loop of dodging, parrying, and switching between the axe and blades is just that good. The Valkyries require you to memorise patterns, manage your cooldowns, and use Atreus effectively as a distraction. It turns the game from a brawler into a dance of death. One thing I love about the combat is how it mirrors Kratos' character. In the beginning, you feel slow and limited. By the end, when you've unlocked your full potential, you feel like the god of war again, but with a refined, controlled precision that the younger Kratos lacked. I also have to touch on the god of puzzles critique. Yes, you spend a lot of time throwing your axe at gears and moving statues, but these puzzles are essential to the pacing. They act as the liminal space between the high-octane fights. They force you to look at the world, to appreciate the scale of the architecture, and to listen to the dialogue between Kratos and Atreus. If the game was just constant combat, the emotional beats wouldn't land. The puzzles give the story room to breathe. They create a rhythm of tension and release that is vital for a 10-hour or 20-hour journey. Even the backtracking, which is a staple of the Metroidvania genre, is handled well here. As you unlock new abilities like the Bifrost or the Shock Arrows, old areas reveal new secrets, making the world feel like it's evolving alongside you. Even in 2026, the visual fidelity is staggering. Santa Monica created a world that feels heavy. The physics of the snow, the scale of the world's serpent, the way Kratos moves with a sense of aging power, it all contributes to a sense of place that few games achieve. The art direction is phenomenal, blending Norse mythology with a gritty, grounded realism. Every realm feels distinct, from the golden, ethereal forests of Alfheim to the oppressive frozen wastes of Helheim. The scale of the bosses, particularly the Dragon Hriesler, is still jaw-dropping years later. The way the game handles light and shadow, especially in the darker caves of Midgard, creates an atmosphere that is both eerie and beautiful. The side missions or favours are the antithesis of open-world slop. They aren't just checkboxes, they are meaningful expansions of the characters. Whether you're freeing a dragon, hunting down legendary armour for the dwarves, or helping a restless spirit find peace, you're learning more about the world and the people in it. These missions often feature some of the best writing in the game, providing backstory for the Aesir gods and the tragedy of the giants. They never feel like a waste of time, because the rewards, both in terms of gear and narrative, are always significant. They turn Midgard from a map into a character to heart. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the score by Bear McCreary. The music is a massive reason why this story packs such a punch. McCreary decided to keep the theme simple, using heavy brass and deep male choirs to represent Kratos' stoicism. The main theme is only 3 notes, yet it carries more weight than most orchestral epics. It's a score that knows when to be loud and when to disappear entirely, allowing the sounds of the environment, the wind in the trees, the crunch of the snow, to take centre stage. It is a masterpiece of atmospheric sound design. God of War 2018 is a timeless classic because it respects the player's intelligence. It took inspiration from the prestige drama of games like The Last of Us, but forged its own unique identity through its technical ambition and its mechanical depth. It is a story about the difficulty of change, the burden of history, and the hope of being better. I am so glad I finally put the cowboy game aside and finished this journey. It is a benchmark for what TIA gaming can be when it's willing to take risk. It is a reminder that even the most violent monsters can find a path to redemption, and that sometimes the hardest battle isn't against a god, it's against yourself. God of War 2018 is a masterpiece, a benchmark, and a reminder of why we love this medium. It doesn't just age, it matures. And in a world of fleeting trends and live service noise, that is a rare and beautiful thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.